Somebody once told me that picking the Empire is incredibly boring. After all, in this wide, wonderful fantasy world with orcs, goblins, animal people, chaos, all sorts of other things, undead, how could you pick boring old plain humans? Well, I've got a few responses. First and foremost is I'm not excluding any of those things. For me, the Empire has always been about regular humans fighting all of that stuff that I just mentioned, right? That wide fantasy world. And for me, the Empire is like myself, my friends, my family. Like, how would we go about ourselves with, medieval-ish kind of technology, go about fighting all of this crazy stuff in the world? And that's definitely what the Empire represents for me, is that regular humans struggling to survive in this fantasy world. How would they do it? This is how, with faith, steel, and gunpowder, of course. Myself facing off against Ryder Rohan. We're both on our mains here on the land battle. Should be a classic, grand, old good time for myself. Got 3 war wagons in the van with some spearmen, a couple of great swords here, and swordsmen, newly cheaper. Empire captain to support them. No abilities on him, just 350 points of heroic single entity. 2 cannons as well for some long-range artillery, and Empire knights for cavalry support. Arch-Lector is the general of this particular Empire army, and of course an Amethyst Wizard to snipe out high-value targets. Recently, even though, Spirit Leech and Fate of Yuna have cool new effects, at the end of the day they are still reliable, if a little boring, direct damage spells. Ryder Rohan currently making a bit of a blunder here with Tyrion. We'll get back to that in just a minute, but some Shadow Warriors and Shadow Walkers in the vanguard here. We've got Silver Helms and then 5 White Lion infantry. So fairly straightforward build, a little bit more concentrated and less wide, but Tyrion coming forward here, of course, no missile block chance, and the high damage of the war wagons is going to hit him pretty substantially. Tyrion's a very small target and is very fast, but of course, war wagons are gunpowder units, which means their missile speed is also very fast, giving them a much better chance to hit somebody like Tyrion here. And, the thing about Tyrion's speed is, yes, he can dodge shots very effectively, but he can also be mismicroed quite easily. And here, I'm just going for full-on egregious Lord Sniping. I mean, this is really my best opportunity to deal damage to Tyrion. So we're going to get a lot of damage in. We actually force Heart of Averlorn proc immediately. Not to mention, I think you get a little bit of healing there. No, it looks like this healing was canceled, but Silver Helm's going to charge in the front line. We'll get this infantry engagement going. Another response I have to Empire haters, which there are a few, as this engagement gets underway here. The spectacle of total war, which we can very much appreciate in this particular shot, as the great swords clash with the white and black lions here with this beautiful color scheme. Empire, for me, is the most pure total war faction, right? Like, yes, they have magic and monsters, to a small degree, but less so than other factions. It's really about the combined arms. They have basically all troop types covered, more or less. Technically, they don't have monstrous infantry, but again, they're more of the regular troops and just combined arms forces trying to fight all of this stuff, right? Jack of all trades, they excel at many things, but they're not necessarily the best faction at any one individual thing, except perhaps mobile firepower at the moment. But here, the Silver Helms are starting to turn my flank a little bit. The Empire Knights are having to be used to block to a large degree. Reserve Spearmen also that were back to protect the cannons are going to be pushed forward as Ryder Rohan focuses Shadow Warriors and Walkers on the cannon crews themselves. Very smart play there. Easy way to eliminate the artillery without having to commit mobility to go back there and hunt it down. But of course, Tyrion's taken substantial damage is a big issue, but the infantry fight also is more or less a wash right now. I mean, my greatswords are trading pretty decently, but they're also taking significant damage from the White Lions. Obviously, my state troops are going to trade less efficiently, but the swordsmen with prayer buffs will do okay, all things considered. Speaking of prayer buffs, Arch-Lector in here with his dual hammers. Doesn't have anti-infantry. It was a bit odd in my book. I think most dual-wield units should probably have an anti-infantry bonus, but anyway. Silver Helm's kind of rallying with Tyrion here, looking for another push. Looking to pressure those war wagons, which still have plenty of ammunition left. Of course, Tyrion's high speed and even the High Elven cavalry themselves still can catch the war wagons, even with their increased speed in Immortal Empires, but Deathcaster kind of still just hanging around, potential for distraction. Also throwing some nice Spirit Leeches on Tyrion throughout the course of the battle. Again, not the most exciting thing, but a reliable way to deal damage to a target that otherwise I may struggle. I don't really have any anti-large AP, right? My only anti-large is some low-tier spears, which are not going to cut it against a combatant like Tyrion, certainly. But he's going to come in and try and chase down my Death Mage here. We're just keeping the War Wagons in position, though. You can see we're down a model on one unit, but quick Spirit Leech, and the Deathcaster's going to tank it out. I say tank it out. He's probably getting routed already. Nope, he's running. Trying to kite it out, I guess, as some of the Silver Helms do land and get into melee against the War Wagons, but of course, War Wagons will continue firing while they're in melee. War Wagons are probably the best individual missile unit, maybe one of the best missile units in the game right now. Probably in the top 5, just generally, I would say, for like all missile units. There's a few reasons for that I'll talk about in a minute, but yeah, the Archlector here trying to protect the Deathcaster. Again, just kind of tank out Tyrion, maybe chase him off. Yep, it looks like, in fact, he is routed, heal-capped, and gets finished by the Archlector. So, even though, obviously, Tyrion's a much superior combatant, we've been able to just finish him off with the combined arms approach. Lots of units contributing to his downfall there. But infantry-wise, we were able to eventually grind out the win. Captain playing a decent part in that. Again, he's not the biggest deal in the world, barely only 300 value so far, but at the same time, he's only 350 points base cost, as he's brought with his current kit. I didn't take any abilities. Yeah, I could have taken Hold the Line if I had the extra points for it, but I don't think I did in this particular build. Anyway, I'm going to use him to kind of pressure here. His heavy armor and missile block chance means that he can kind of get in here and at least chase these Shadow Warriors around a little bit. We're going to pressure with some infantry as well. War Wagons being switched into melee mode, which is something they are not necessarily great at, but again, it's more just about like getting hits on these models, tying them down, and of course the War Wagons will continue shooting them point blank in melee as well, so there's that for damage output. A little bit more Spirit Leech on the Life Mage as we go 2v1 characters on her. She's gone, and that should be pretty much it for the High Elf army. It was genuinely very close. I think, obviously, the blunder with Tyrion, even though he has quite a bit of healing to be able to recover from that blunder, and to a degree, he was able to get in and get some work done. But I think, I mean, obviously, we can look at the value now, see that he did not pay for himself. Yeah, definitely not. And the War Wagons, all I'm guessing, yeah, there you see the value they took off of Tyrion in their own. Also had them focusing on Silver Helms at times. We were able to limit them all to a fair degree as well. I do like the pick of the Shadow Walkers and the Shadow Warriors here, though. They all ended up being one of the brightest spots of the army in terms of damage output. They didn't quite, I mean, the cannons, let's see. Yeah, neither of the cannons paid for themselves. Tactically, pretty useful. This one gets pretty close, too. I mean, 579's not terrible, but definitely not as much damage output as I would have liked. But then we come in, obviously, the War Wagons. The Greatswords do okay. Again, tactically, they do enough. They trade with the White Lions, more or less, who all, again, sort of wash against each other, including the Spearmen and the Swordsmen in that a little bit as well. One of these Spearmen did get out on that one flank and help support against the Cav, as you saw there. They got some pretty good value as well. But, yeah, Captain ends up definitely paying for himself. Again, he's so cheap. I definitely recommend if you have an extra hero slot open, it's less cost than a single, I guess now it's the same cost as a swordsman, right? Like, I think in this army, I literally have 4 swordsmen, and then I just said, okay, I have an empty hero slot, let's cut one of those swordsmen and bring a captain, and it ended up working out pretty well for me, I have to say. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you enjoy Empire games as well, because I am an Empire main, it's true, and I do enjoy playing them most of all, out of all other factions, and that will probably continue to be the case, even as other updates are released for other human factions, and, I mean, it's hard to beat the combined arms of the Empire in my book, as somebody who's played Total War since the beginning, since the original Shogun Total War, and, you know, Medieval 2 was obviously one of the greatest of all time. Empire, in many ways, harkens back to sort of the late-game armies of Medieval 2 in, like, the Holy Roman Empire and some other factions. But anyway, I'm rambling a bit at this point. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this, be sure to subscribe, like, share with a friend. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.